exploring what fermentation is, because when you know the principles of fermentation, then you can create something new. The same as when you just start working as a bartender, you learn some classic cocktails, then you understand how cocktails actually work, that there is a balance between sweetness, acidity, sometimes bitterness, and alcohol. As you work in the kitchen, you also start learning just ingredient, like dishes from the menu. Sorry, I'll accept one more person. Yeah, and then you learn how to create your own. The same applies to everything. First, you learn the basics, then you can go by the recipe. But then, when you know how this works, you can create something new. All right. So what is fermentation? Fermentation is the transformative action of microorganisms. So basically, they microorganisms, which is bacteria, yeast, or fungi, or mold, they feed on something, on some sort of a substrate, and then they transform texture, they transform flavor, and you end up with something completely different. Fermentation is the process of sugars being broken down by enzymes of microorganisms in the absence of oxygen. Enzymes, we have enzymes within our intestines. When we eat food, our enzymes break down carbohydrates into simple sugars, complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. We get energy. Enzymes, other enzymes, they break down proteins into amino acids, and we get building blocks for our muscle tissue. So that's how kids grow. That's how people get gain muscle. So we need energy, and we need building blocks for our bodies. I'll admit more people. Yeah. And fermentation is one of the ancient food processing technologies. Fermentation has always been there. We never invented it. If a fruit falls down the tree, it starts fermenting. We just learned how to use it, and we don't really know when we learned that. Probably even like dozens of thousands years ago, people would grab a fruit and try it. Some people would just spit it out and then go further. Some people would maybe eat it. But anyway, fermentation, people started using fermentation even before fire cooking. At least that's when people started consuming fermented foods. So there is nothing new about fermentation, and in any culture there is a lot of fermented foods. So it's not rocket science. And this is something, this is the same what I just said, just in a more scientific language. Fermentation is defined as a process in which chemical changes occur in organic substrate through the action of enzymes produced by microorganisms. For example, yeast enzymes convert sugars and starches into alcohol, while proteins are converted into peptides or amino acids. And fermentation takes place in the lack of oxygen that produces ATP. ATP is the unit of energy. This is the only scientific term we need to remember, and you will understand why. ATP is the unit of energy produced by bacteria or yeast. And fermentation is always a community. Fermentation is never found in isolation. It always exists in communities. For example, right now on your eye, there is more bacteria on your eye. There is more bacteria than there are people living in Dubai. Basically, bacteria is everywhere. It's always in the air. All we need to do, we just need to create the right environment for the bacteria we want. One second. Like I said, microorganisms are never found in isolation. They exist in communities, and it's the conditions of a particular ecological niche that determine which organisms will thrive there. Basically, when we talk about alcoholic fermentation, it's never just an isolated alcoholic fermentation. It's predominantly alcoholic fermentation. When we talk about lacto-fermentation, it's never just lacto-fermentation. It's predominantly lacto-fermentation, but then there's a lot of other types of fermentation happen at the same time. They just not that pronounced, like lacto-fermentation. So they don't have that impact that we can feel. Because mostly we get lactic acid. So there is a lot of other bacteria doing their job, but if we create the environment for lactic acid bacteria, then this is predominantly lactic acid fermentation. If we create the environment for yeast, this will be predominantly yeast-driven, which is alcoholic fermentation. If we create the environment for acetic acid bacteria, then we'll end up with either with kombucha or vinegar. Depends on the community that we have. Isolated microorganisms exist only in an extremely well-equipped laboratory, like scientific laboratory. I'm not talking about a restaurant laboratory where you have a centrifuge and rotobab. I'm talking about labs where if you enter, you have to be sanitized a couple of times. And like I said, practice of fermentation largely consists of manipulating environmental conditions to encourage certain organisms and discourage others. So you create the environment for the bacteria you want, and that same environment should be a bad environment for the bacteria you don't want. So that's why you need to know how exactly fermentation works and which bacteria prefers which environment. Everybody can see the picture. It's a photo of an orchestra. Basically, you are this person who is conducting the orchestra conductor, who decides which musician plays. Basically, that's what you're doing when you ferment. You decide which bacteria works, which bacteria performs. You create the right conditions, and that bacteria performs. You deprive the bacteria you don't want, and that bacteria doesn't perform, but it's still there. It doesn't die. It's still there. It's just in very small, insignificant quantities. Everybody can see the shared screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Mm-hmm. All right. If somebody cannot see the shared screen, just try to click something on your phone. Yeah. And now this is principles of fermentation. So there are two types of respiration of the way bacteria or microorganisms breathe. It's anaerobic without oxygen or aerobic with oxygen. So now you can see that it all starts with glucose. So then bacteria applies 2 ATP, 2 units of energy to 1 molecule of glucose to process it. And then if we have oxygen, then the bacteria, this is what bacteria wants to do. Bacteria wants to breathe. Bacteria wants to breathe, and bacteria doesn't want to ferment. Because if bacteria can breathe, bacteria can produce up to 36 ATP, which is a good investment. It's a good return on investment. So bacteria invested 2 ATP to process 1 molecule of glucose and gets like 18 times more of the energy. So that's what goes by default. However, if there is no oxygen, bacteria can survive. What happens to human if we don't have oxygen? We die. If bacteria doesn't have oxygen or yeast doesn't have oxygen, it can ferment and can survive. However, the fermentation way will only yield about 5% of the energy obtained by aerobic respiration. So it's only 5%. So this is not a good investment anymore. It's just to get by, just the way to get by. Of course, bacteria wants to have more energy, so it prefers to breathe. That's why to make it ferment, you have to deprive your microorganisms of oxygen. So this is the types of fermentation, the most common types of fermentation. Mostly, it starts with either lactic acid bacteria or yeast. If you have lactic acid bacteria, and you definitely have lactic acid bacteria in the air, if you have created the right environment for lactic acid bacteria, then you can have two types of lactic acid fermentation. One is homofermentation, when mostly lactic acid is produced, and then it depends on the strains of lactic acid bacteria, because there's like multiple strains of lactic acid bacteria. So if you have predominantly homofermentative lactic acid bacteria, you have predominantly lactic acid. If you have also heterofermentative, it means it can ferment. It can also produce alcohol. So lactic acid bacteria, some of the strains, can produce both lactic acid and alcohol. And then with yeast, it's very straightforward. If you create the environment for yeast, then they will produce predominantly alcohol. And of course, there will be some carbon dioxide and some water production as byproduct. And then if you have alcohol produced by yeast or heterofermentative lactic acid bacteria, then you can introduce acetic acid bacteria. And alcohol can be converted if the environment is right. Again, the most important is the environment, the conditions for the bacteria. It can be converted into acetic acid. Some lactic acid can also be converted into acetic acid, although this is not a preferred food for acetic acid bacteria. Acetic acid bacteria prefers alcohol. So what's the difference between kombucha fermentation and vinegar? Vinegar, so it all looks the same. It all looks like what people know SCOBY. this floating thing that floats in a jar. Both kombucha SCOBY and vinegar mother, they look the same, like that floating thing. It's called pellicle. It's made of cellulose, this floating part of the kombucha or vinegar. In mother of vinegar, there is only acetic acid bacteria. It means that it cannot convert sugar into alcohol. So it can only consume alcohol. So it has to be introduced in already alcoholic beverage. Whereas kombucha, it's a SCOBY, which means symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And SCOBY can be introduced into any sweet liquid, and yeast of that culture will convert sugar into alcohol, and at the same time, all the alcohol will be converted into acetic acid. So that's how alcohol levels don't rise, because the fermentation happens at the same time. Once some alcohol, like very little amount of alcohol, is produced at the same time, the other bacteria already consumes it and converts that alcohol into acetic acid. What that also means, it means that it means basically two things that you can use. It means that vinegars can be naturally sweet, because mother of vinegar will not convert sugar into more alcohol. It will only consume alcohol. And it also means that vinegar can be made from any alcohol. So that's how that's what you can use in competitions or in innovative dressings. You can take any alcohol, dilute it to like 10 ABV. You can take whiskey, you can take I don't know, wine, of course. You can take, I'm just looking at my alcohol shelf. You can take tequila, and you can dilute it to about 10% ABV, and you can introduce vinegar culture and make vinegar from it, completely non-alcoholic vinegar. It will take a few weeks or months to make vinegar from alcohol. But so if you plan for a competition, then you need to plan way in advance. If you plan for the new menu, you have to make sure that you put enough of the batches. Now we move to lacto-fermented sodas. So here are the core types of lacto-fermented sodas. The first one is ginger bug, then water kefir, milk Kefir Whey Sodas, Lacto-Fermented Amazake, and Kvass. So ginger bug, it's made from fresh ginger. You buy fresh ginger, you wash it without any soap, you just rinse it properly, you wash off all the dirt, and then you grate it, and then you mix it with sugar and water, and you repeat the process. You add more grated vinegar and sugar every day for like 5 days, and then you will see there will be some life. It will be alive. Basically, you create a starter. So there is it's a bubbly starter, predominantly lactic acid bacteria that lives there. It's naturally present on ginger, on the ginger skin. And then you can strain some liquid from that ginger bug and introduce it to a mixture of fruit and water and sugar, or water and fruit puree, like anything. Basically, it has to be, we'll get to the conditions of lactic acid fermentation. So basically, that's how you can create a ginger bug starter. And for that, you only need a grater and fresh ginger and sugar and water. That's it. You don't need any special equipment. That's how you can start ginger bug. And you can even start it today. Then water kefir. To make water kefir, you need water kefir grains. Those grains can only be shared. So you either get them from somebody, you buy it from somebody. You cannot create that from scratch. We will skip that for now. All this information in detail is available on the website, cosmosociety.com. About water kefir, you can find all the information for free. The next soda is milk kefir whey sodas. Basically, we'll get into that soda later in detail. And then Lacto-Fermented Amazake sodas. It's made with Koji. There is two ways of making it. I will explain both. This is actually the easiest. Koji sounds very intimidating because the best restaurants in the world apply a lot of Koji. They work with Koji, and then you think, oh, it's the best restaurants in the world. Like, what I'm gonna do in my restaurant when I don't even have time to, I don't know, to make all the batches that I already have. Reduce the batches. If ingredients, if there are commercially available ingredients and they are good quality, I suggest you just learn how to make whatever you want to make and then get back to the commercial ingredients. That's how you save a lot of time. And sometimes if you're a manager or business owner, also labor cost. Then Kvass. Kvass is an Eastern European fermented beverage, and we'll discover more about it. So now we'll move to milk kefir whey sodas. Basically, what you can see on the picture, it is milk kefir that has been strained. So this clear liquid, this is not milk punch, this clear liquid, it's called whey. So this is a clear liquid. You leave the solids, the curdled milk solids behind. When milk is fermented with kefir grains, the proteins of milk coagulate. So they form some solid parts. And then you just strain them through a nut milk bag. And then you get this clear liquid, which is called whey. Kefir is fermented by kefir SCOBY. So what you see on the left part of the picture, in a small vessel, this is milk kefir grains. We'll have a close-up of that in the next couple of slides. Basically, it's also SCOBY. It's also a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And this is the strongest SCOBY in the world that exists. Because it contains a full spectrum of lactic acid bacteria and yeast, and they can ferment pretty much any available sugar, not only lactose. Lactose in milk, it's also sugar. This is their favorite food, but in fact, they can actually consume pretty much any sugar, including fruit sugars, like glucose, also maltose, sucrose. Any sugar can be consumed by this bacteria. However, they thrive on lactose. And sorry, kefir also can, kefir SCOBY can also work in wide temperature ranges. So like it allows more room for mistake. However, of course, if your temperature varies, you will not get consistent results. But overall, if you just ferment kefir at home, if you just want to take care of your health, it doesn't matter if it's 20 degrees or if it's 29 degrees or 30 degrees. The grains will survive, they will ferment, they will do their job. And this is ideal for delicate fruits with creamy or floral undertones. So this type of lacto-fermented sodas. So think about mango, strawberry, like pretty much anything that you would normally see in yogurts as a flavoring, like blueberry as well. So everything that can be kind of paired with milk, although you will not have any milk flavor in it, because most of the lactose will be consumed by kefir SCOBY or kefir grains, they called also. Most of the lactose will be consumed at the stage of kefir production, at the first step. So basically, lactose content will be reduced by 70 to 90% when you just ferment kefir. And then when you strain kefir whey from the solids, from the coagulated proteins, you end up with like maybe maximum 5 to 10% of the initial lactose content, and that's already in the whey. And then you also mix it with something else, so you maybe have only 1% or close to 0% of the lactose. So this starter is still good for people who have problems with lactose. Most of the people who have lactose, like mild lactose intolerance, they will be fine with kefir, so they can consume kefir. Yeah, lactose content is reduced by 80 to 95% when you produce kefir whey. So this is the kefir SCOBY. It looks like cauliflower. They are rubbery to touch. Again, it contains it contains up to 40 strains of bacteria and yeast. For example, in yogurt, you get up to 8. In industrial yogurt that you buy in a supermarket, you get about 4 strains of bacteria. So kefir has up like 10 times more than your yogurt from a supermarket. That's why this is the most the beverage that has the most health benefits. And because there is a very wide range of microorganisms, it can consume wide range of sugars. So it can ferment pretty much anything. And it reduces lactose content in milk by 70 to 90% when you produce milk kefir. And then when you produce milk kefir whey sodas, lactose content is reduced by pretty much 99%. It can only be multiplied or passed. You can find a lot of people on Facebook who share it. You just need to search. I would not suggest ordering it through Amazon because it will come dehydrated, and probably I don't know anybody who managed to revive them. So get them fresh. And what also that means, if it can only be multiplied or passed, it means that they are more than 1,000 years old because they cannot be recreated from scratch. How this kefir grains actually are cured, because in a raw milk that is not pasteurized from a healthy cow, there is a pretty much similar microbiota. So there is a similar combination of bacteria and yeast. That's why if you just milk a cow and you keep the milk at room temperature, you will end up with kefir. So you don't need kefir grains for that if you have raw milk. But it can only be from a healthy cow, and if the milk is not heated, not pasteurized. And at some point, centuries ago or thousands of years ago, those microorganisms with some other so basically this is with some other ingredients formed this rubbery network, and then it was passed, like people noticed that it works the same way and produces more consistent results, and then it was passed through generations, predominantly in countries like Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, also some Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and then it got spread to the neighboring countries. Russia was one of the first countries to adopt that as well, and it's one of the most popular beverages there now. And how to make lacto-fermented sodas with milk kefir. So what you see on the picture is everything that you need. It's pretty much easy. You just need to get your hands on the milk kefir grains. You need to combine kefir grains with fresh milk, fermented at room temperature for 24 hours, strain through a nut milk bag or super bag to separate clear liquid, whey. And then add whey into a mixture of water and fruit puree. That's it. And then you ferment it at 20 to 23 Celsius for 2 to 3 days. And that's it. So this is a very straightforward fermentation again. The same procedure when you start from adding whey into a mixture of water and fruit puree. If you have ginger bug, you can do the same. And then you ferment a mixture of water and fruit puree cultured with ginger bug at 20 to 23 Celsius for 2 to 3 days, and you get lacto-fermented soda. If you use ginger bug, you will of course have a little bit of ginger flavor. If you use milk kefir whey, you will not have any foreign flavor. You'll end up predominantly with the flavor of the fruit or a herb that you use. This soda can be stored in the fridge for like 2 weeks. It will not go off. You still consume it, but it will be probably very acidic. I suggest storing it in the fridge for like up to 7 days. Then the flavor starts changing significantly comparing to the first day. And if you try a soda that was stored for like 10 days, the flavor is already different. It's much more acidic, much more kind of yeasty, I would say. If you use it in cocktails, or if you have this beverage on its own on the menu of your restaurant, probably that's not a good thing to serve different flavor under the same name. And it throws your balance of the cocktail off. That's why I suggest to use it within 7 days, but it still can be consumed. You can consume it with the same health benefits if you make it just for yourself, or if your guests are fine with having slightly different flavor. It's like, wine of different vintage, the same chateau, just different vintage. You have slightly different profile, is the same. So still can be consumed. After 2 weeks, it will become probably very aggressively acidic. It will not be pleasant to consume, but there are ways to use it as well. And if you need to kind of clarify it, and you don't need any ingredients for that, like pectinase or bentonite, you can just put it in the fridge overnight, and all the sediment will fall to the bottom, most of the sediment. It will not be transparent like water, but you will clear it of the sediment. So you put it in the fridge, the sediment falls, and then you just kind of rack it off the sediment, leaving the sediment behind. And here we go, Kvass. I have a bottle of Kvass here, and we'll be making Kvass today. So Kvass is produced by simultaneous fermentation of yeast and lactic acid bacteria. Traditionally made from stale, old sourdough rye bread, toasted and mixed with the sourdough starter and water. So there is no, like, you should not add any yeast. It has to be cultured with a sourdough starter to make the real authentic Kvass. Because if you add yeast, you produce alcoholic fermentation, and Kvass should be sour, so it's predominantly lactic fermentation. It's slightly carbonated, sweet and sour, very low ABV, very insignificant. It's the same as in fresh juice if you keep it in the fridge for 3 days. Relatively short fermentation cycle. You can ferment in like 2 to 3 days. And unlimited choice of seasoning. That's why it's one of my favorite beverages, because you can ferment it quicker than kombucha, and you can ferment it with anything. Okay, somebody wants to ask a question? Go ahead. You can unmute yourself or not?
Yes, thank you, Denis. Just a quick question. Can you use, like, let's say, for example, you want to make like a bagel Kvass or with croissant, or like any like pastry, for example, or it has to be like bread oriented?
Yeah, we'll get there. You can make Kvass with anything. I used to work at LPM too when it was COVID, and I made Kvass from baguette. Because LPM bakes baguette every day, and of course there's a little bit of wastage. And I made baguette Kvass, and then I made a cocktail with that baguette Kvass. You just need to toast it until it's very dark.
Okay.
All right, we'll get there. We'll get to the seasoning, to the flavors of Kvass. And why grain is used to make so many beverages in the country in the area where Kvass comes from and where I come from, because the climate is hostile to grapes, traditionally used for fermented beverages in other regions. Wheat and rye can grow in frozen ground, which is good for the countries that have a lot of winter. It's a versatile product. You can make bread, desserts, many fermented beverages, and of course vodka. So this is sourdough starter. It's an intermediate product containing flour and water mixture. So it's only water and flour in this mixture. This is what you can make at home. And it's been fermented by a combination of bacteria, usually heterofermentative strains of lactic acid bacteria and yeast. We remember that heterofermentative means they produce both lactic acid and alcohol. And that's what makes bread rise. Yes, alcohol makes bread rise because it produces carbon dioxide that expands the bread. And that's how bread becomes porous. So basically, you don't need to add anything else into this starter. You just need flour and water. You can go to the nearest grocery store and buy pure flour without any additives, like not a baking mixture or like self-rising flour. No, that will not work. It has to be just normal flour and water. It has fermentative power, the ability to convert sugars into products like ethanol, carbon dioxide, and organic acids. So basically, when you combine water and flour, the grain has enzymes. And those enzymes, they convert starch of the flour into sugars. You can experiment. You can mix water and flour, mix it properly, wait for a few hours, let it sit at room temperature on the counter, and then try that on your tongue, and then at the same time compare to just plain flour that is not mixed with anything. And you will see that the mixture of water and flour tastes a little bit sweeter. So that's the enzymes of the grain converted some of the starch of the grain into sugars. And those sugars are food for lactic acid bacteria and yeast. Yeast and lactic acid bacteria make the surroundings inhospitable to most other microbes. So they create the environment that is not good for the bad bacteria. Yeast give off ethanol, which can be tolerated by the lactic acid bacteria. And lactic acid bacteria produces acids, but wild yeasts are also tolerant to the increasingly acidic conditions. So this is some sort of a SCOBY as well. Lactic acid bacteria and yeast, they coexist and they create the environment that is not good for the rest of the microorganisms. Like I said, when flour and water mixed, enzymes, amylases in flour convert long starch molecules into simple sugars, providing the perfect fuel for microbial reproduction. This is the recipe for sourdough starter. You can screenshot it, or you can you will receive also this recipe. You can also find it on my Instagram. Basically, it's very simple to make a sourdough starter at home. You just need water, drinking water, flour. Ideally, the flour should be whole grain, but just normal flour can also do. But try to find whole grain flour just to create the starter. There is a tip. Some people go to Amazon and search whole grain flour, and they find the flour that costs like 30 dirhams for a kg. Don't do that. Go to Lulu or Carrefour and find let me just remember the name. Sometimes it's called brown flour. Sometimes it's called chaki atta flour. It's a stone ground whole wheat flour. People from India and neighboring countries definitely know what I'm talking about. Chaki atta flour. So this is the best flour to create your sourdough starter, and it costs like 5 dirhams for a kg. So you go there, you get it, you mix it 1-to-1 with water. You can start with any quantity. You can start with 50 grams of whole grain flour and 50 grams of water. You mix it until there is no dried clumps, and put it in a small jar. Next day, you take whatever you have there, and you put it on the scale, and you need to figure out the weight. For example, if you mixed 50 grams and 50 grams, then it's 100 grams. So so this is 100 grams of the mixture. You add to that the same quantities of water and the same flour. I'll get there to the chickpeas or lentils. You get the same water. You get the same quantity of water, the same quantity of flour, and so that's 100 grams of the mixture, 100 grams of the same flour, 100 grams of water. You mix it all and then keep it in a jar. Next day, you repeat the process. Because you already now have 300 grams of the mixture, maybe you can throw away half of it and you just keep 150 grams. And then you continue with 150 grams, 150 grams, 150 grams. So this process you have to repeat. Here, discipline is very important. This process you have to repeat for 5 days, every day. 5 to 7 days. Normally, if the flour is good, 5 days is enough. If the flour is a little bit weaker, 7 days should do. But you should do it daily. You should not skip, because this bacteria, it has to eat. You cannot negotiate with bacteria. Even you can negotiate with people not to eat a few days, but not with bacteria. So you mix 1 part of the mixture, 1 part of flour, 1 part of water every day. And then you will see it will, first 2 or 3 days, it will smell disgusting, like a toilet. Then after 4 or 5 days, it will smell sour. And that's what you want. You keep it just at room temperature. So what's your investment? Your investment is 5 dirhams for flour and maybe 1.5 dirham for a bottle of water, and a jar that you can also buy, like a normal plastic jar in Lulu for 5 or 10 dirhams. So your investment here is 20 dirhams maximum, probably 15. And then you have a starter. Then you can bake bread, or you can make kvass. When it comes to different flours, it will be very complicated. I would suggest to start with this flour, achieve the result, and then you already have confidence, and then you can experiment with different flours like lentil or chickpea. Quinoa is the next easiest. But if you never done it with normal flour, and if you fail there, then you will just lose confidence. So I suggest you start first with this flour, with normal flour. You succeed, and then when you already know that you can do it, then you experiment with other flours. Like, I suggest that you follow this advice, because I've been through this with other things, but I've been through this. So you need to gain first some confidence. You need a foolproof recipe. And it's like, you start working in a bar, and then instead of making a mojito or daiquiri, you like, okay, I'll clarify something right away with I don't know, centrifuge. And then it doesn't work out, and then like, probably you're not fit to be a bartender. All right, we move to the kvass recipe. So this is the kvass recipe. I will demonstrate it after this presentation. Actually, okay, let's do it now. I'll just get some hot water. I'll stop sharing the screen. Yeah. So basically, this is my sourdough starter. You see, it's very bubbly. Yeah, smells sour. this all you need. And this is already made kvass. It's been fermented for 2 days at room temperature. Then I put the jar into the fridge for 1 day. So then most of the sediment would fall to the jar. Then I racked the liquid of the sediment, and then I bottled it. And then, of course, when you move a liquid from the jar, you lose a lot of carbonation. So then the carbonation will build up here. But when it comes to lacto-fermented sodas or kombuchas or anything like that, don't rely a lot on natural carbonation, because when champagne is carbonated, it's fermented there in the bottle for months, sometimes years. So the CO2 dissolves into the liquid properly, and it's fermented until it's very dry. So you cannot compare. And when you get beer is forced carbonated. It's not natural carbonation. So basically what we're doing now, this can be either toasted rye bread or any bread. You toast it until it's coffee dark, and then you grind it. Or you can just put, like if you cannot grind it, you can just use a piece like that. Yes, you can force carbonate it with the carbonation rig. That's what I suggest, because people who will consume it, they will think about like carbonation, the same carbonation as Pepsi or beer or champagne. But because it's only been in the bottle for a few days, it's not the carbonation is not that strong, and it will escape quickly once you open the bottle. And this is normal. Don't be frustrated with that. Okay, so basically now I'm adding, it can be fermented rye malt. Unfortunately, it's not available here, but I'll use just toasted bread, any bread. You toast it until it's that dark brown. Zuka is asking about PSI. Let's not go that deep. I know that you're a pro. I would suggest it's up to you. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's up to the preference. So you can use raw sugar. You can use white sugar. I use jaggery. It doesn't matter what you use. It just, again, the matter of preference. For bacteria, it's all the same. Just jaggery or raw sugar has more minerals, which is good for bacteria. It's not necessary, but it's good. And it has more flavor. When it comes to kvass, I prefer to get this flavor to make the flavor richer, because it's toasted bread and dark sugar, they pair well. But you can use just normal white sugar. So the most important when it comes to sugar content, it has to be about 10%. I already measured how much sugar I have here. It has to be about 10%, because if you go lower than 8%, I would say, the fermentation will be very slow. It will not be enough food for your microorganisms. If you go higher, you will end up with something alcoholic, because yeast, they prefer more sugar. Lactic acid bacteria prefers a little bit less sugar. That's why it ferments well vegetables or milk, because the sugar content is lower there. And if you ferment fruits, you end up with more alcoholic fermentation. However, if you control the quantity of sugar and you get as much close as possible to 10%, within 8 to 12%, I suggest. So that means for 1 liter of liquid, you need 100 grams of sugar. 90 is okay, 110 is okay. Then we just pour some hot water I put hot water to speed up the process. I want to dissolve this sugar, and I want to steep that crushed toasted bread. So what's most important here is to dissolve the sugar into the water. So this like 80 degrees. So we need to cool it down before we add our sourdough starter, because otherwise we will kill all the bacteria. To cool it down, I prepared in advance some cold liquid. Yeah, so now it's dissolved. You can just wait until it cools down to about ideally to 25 degrees Celsius. But basically what you need is anything below 30 to make sure that it works. Yeah, anything below 30. It's a little bit hot. It's 33. I'll use a little bit more water. Yeah, now it's perfect. It's 29. And now I'll add just kind of a tablespoon of this active sourdough starter. I will not mix it in too much because it doesn't really matter. And if you mix it in too much, you will make just the liquid more hazy. It doesn't really help a lot if you like completely dissolve it in. And again, it's just a matter of aesthetics. You can have a hazier liquid, it doesn't matter, but then it will be a little bit more difficult to clarify. And that's it. Then you just wait for 2 to 3 days. You will end up with like some tiny bubbles here. Then after 2 or 3 days, you need to ferment it at 20 to 22 Celsius. So this is important because if your temperature is higher, then if it's higher than 25 Celsius, it will definitely be alcoholic. If it's between 22 to 25 Celsius, we really don't know. It depends on many other things. It depends on the culture in your sourdough starter, which also like you can only analyze it in a laboratory. But if you keep it between 20 and 22 Celsius, it will be predominantly lactic acid fermentation. regardless of the particularities of your sourdough starter. So the sweet spot is 20 to 22 degrees. Then you just wait, put this jar into the fridge after 3 days, let's say, keep it overnight. Then all this sediment will fall down to the bottom of the jar. And after that, you can bottle. You can force carbonate it. And then, of course, now I'm going to share the screen again. There is unlimited choice of seasoning, like I said. So basically, what is toasted bread here? Toasted bread is essentially a flavoring agent. It's something that adds flavor to your beverage. If you prefer to make something different, you don't have to use toasted bread at all. You can just use sourdough starter, a little bit of sugar, and fruit puree. But don't use too acidic, something that is too acidic. Use something more on the sweet side. Because if it's too acidic, the acidity will be, the starting acidity will be very low, and the bacteria will not want to acidify the environment. So it will not be that active. Then we move to sustainability through fermentation, which is a very trendy thing. It's a sustainable source of acidity. A lot of people say, "Oh, we, I don't know, we freeze ice in the bar. We make all the syrups ourselves." I don't think this is exactly sustainability. Sustainability, it's also applied to, it has to be reflected in the P&L. Sustainability, it's also about how sustainable your business is. Okay, here's the question, important question. If you have to measure bricks in the puree, you can look at the puree, at the packaging. I actually have, so I have mandarin confit that was made in a vacuum chamber at low temperatures, so the flavor is still fresh. This is good to use. Basically, all the water content was evaporated without heating the product. So in here, you have a nutritional value. Don't look at the added sugar. Added sugar is not all the sugar content in your puree. I'm explaining to those who don't have a refractometer, because not everybody has a precise refractometer and can measure bricks. But if you have it, it's easier. So you look at the total sugars, because fruits are very rich in sugar, and especially fruits where water content was evaporated. And then you look at the sugar content here, and then you have to balance that out with water to make sure that your final bricks is 10, or your sugar content is 10%. So that's how you can figure it out. And back to sustainability. Basically, it's important to understand how sustainable your business is, especially now when a lot of businesses, they don't even have money to pay salaries. For example, if you use this Lacto-Fermented Sodas, you don't have to use for your signature cocktails. When you craft your signature cocktails with the Lacto-Fermented Sodas, you don't have to use expensive malic acid. You don't have to use fruits, so you avoid wastage if you don't use lime or lemon, or if you don't buy freshly squeezed juice, you avoid wastage. And it's a natural source of acidity. And natural means that human palate is accustomed to that flavor. So it's not something that you taste and like something weird. If you, of course, you cannot replace acidity in classic cocktails. It will taste very different. You cannot replace lime in daiquiri by lacto-fermented soda. It will taste different. Here, you will have to stick to the classics, or you have to replicate the natural acidity of lime juice and add back some lime flavor and bitterness of the lime as well, because it's part of the cocktail composition, cocktail profile. But when you create new cocktails, signature cocktails, you can build it with acidity that comes from lacto-fermented ingredients. The same, those lacto-fermented sodas can be used in salad dressings or any dressings. They all provide acidity. And the acidity will be different to vinegar acidity. It will be much more pleasant and less harsh acidity. So you can add more of that. It's also a sustainable source of sweetness because Koji fermentation creates sugars from starch of rice. Technically, it's a no added sugar ingredient that is sweet. Some of the products made from Koji without any added sugar can be as sweet as honey or agave, with a hint of umami. Then you also minimize food waste, of course, because when you ferment, you preserve. And anything that is about to go off, you can ferment. Minimize carbon footprint. When you ferment, most of the time, you don't need any electricity. Unlike when you cook syrups, you need a lot of electricity or gas. And also you produce a lot of heat. When something's fermented in small quantities, I mean, like even if it's a barrel, I'm not talking about like beer brewery or wine or whiskey brewery, but if it's like a scale of the restaurant, then you don't produce much heat as well. It never goes off. It can be reutilized. If something goes very sour, you can use it in salad dressings, or you can use less of it in a different drink. And it makes it easier to apply seasonality and support local farmers. And this is more important than at any other time. It's more important now to support local businesses for those who have that chance. Of course, first of all, now we have to sustain ourselves and get through these difficult times. What is Koji? Fad or Fab? Koji is malt traditionally grown on rice or barley, but can be grown on any substrate rich in carbohydrates. For example, unripe banana. It's rich in starch. You can grow Koji on unripe banana too. Naturally contains large quantities of enzymes, such as amylase and protease produced by malts, which convert starch and protein into fermentable sugar and amino acids. Amino acids is what people call umami. Umami is the taste that helps us detect protein in food. And amino acids is the proteins that are broken down. For example, cheese, all the proteins are broken down into amino acids. That's why when we add, I don't know, Parmesan, we can eat any food pretty much. And like food becomes delicious. Umami works as a backbone to other flavors as well. And Koji are used to produce soy sauce. When you use soy sauce in food, you can also eat anything because it's pure umami and salty, which is different taste. Salty and umami, it's not the same. Salty and umami often go together because you need to make sure that other bacteria or yeast don't interfere the process. That's why you put a lot of salt, more than in fermented vegetables. You put like 10% of salt or more but that's to make sure that other microorganisms don't work. Salt does not contribute to umami. Salt only creates the bad environment for the bacteria we don't want, and it lets the enzymes convert proteins into umami. That's why, for example, if you use saline solution in cocktails, you don't contribute umami, you contribute salty, which is also good. It's a little bit of minerality. But if you really want to contribute umami, try miso solution or try shio koji solution. Koji primarily serves as a starter for fermented foods. It's usually added to another product. For example, if you want to make miso paste from scratch, you take koji rice, you take soybeans, salt to make sure other ingredients don't spoil the food, and you combine it all together. And then salt keeps all the other bacteria away, and enzymes of koji break down proteins of soybeans into amino acids, and it produces umami. Instead of soybeans, you can use any meat. Instead of soybeans, you can use any protein waste, shrimp shells, for example. Koji is technically not fermentation. Koji is technically not fermentation, but from the culinary perspective, it is fermentation, because we achieve the same transformation of flavor and texture. But from the scientific perspective, it's not fermentation, it's enzymatic change. In fermentation, Koji world is amazing. Basically, fermentation is driven by bacteria or yeast. Bacteria or yeast, it's alive microorganisms, whereas koji, it's enzymes. You can dehydrate koji, but at very low temperatures. You can buy dehydrated koji as well. Dehydrated koji will absorb, when you mix it with something, they will absorb more liquid. So you will end up with smaller quantities of product. Also, dehydrated koji is slightly lower in enzymatic power. So the result will be not as pronounced as if you use fresh koji. You can grow fresh koji. Also, I supply fresh koji in the UAE. Dehydrated koji can be ordered online. The price is pretty much the same if you buy fresh koji from me or you order dehydrated online. Eventually, both will work. How exactly koji work? Like I said, they the same as human beings. We have enzymes, and we process food that we ingest. So koji is mold. It grows on something, for example, on rice. And when it grows on rice, it produces enzymes and injects those enzymes into the grain. So the grain is packed with enzymes, and that grain is an enzyme bomb. So that grain can be mixed with something else, and there is so much enzymes that the food you mix it with can be transformed through those enzymes. So amylase, it's a starch metabolizing enzyme. It converts starch into sugar. That's why everything fermented with koji becomes sweeter. And protease, it's a protein metabolizing enzyme. It converts proteins into amino acids, and that's why it releases umami from any protein-rich food. You extract, you release a lot of umami. Yeah, so that's basically the intensity of umami increases as fermentation goes on due to decomposition of protein. So the longer you ferment protein-rich food with Koji, the more umami you get. Applications, you can make protein-based garum. Garum is a mixture of Koji barley, Koji rice, anything, and a source of protein, normally animal source of protein. So you can use shrimp shells, fish tails, anything, parts of animal that you cannot cook and consume, so you can make garum from it. So it's Koji, some source of protein, and salt. You can ferment cocoa with Koji. It will become, if you use fresh cocoa nibs already fermented. You can make miso paste from cocoa nibs. Cocoa nibs already underwent alcoholic fermentation, so there is no residual sugar. And then cocoa nibs underwent acetic acid fermentation as well. So most of the sugar is out of the cocoa nibs. There is nothing for Koji to consume. But if you, for example, if you add a little bit of other protein source, for example, some cookie and cocoa nibs. I've tried miso made from brownies. So if you combine cocoa nibs, cookies, water, Koji rice, and salt, and then you can have miso made from cocoa nibs. You need to boost the protein and sugars in that mixture. Miso and piso, so you can make from any legume, you can make miso. You can make miso from peanut, and because peanut is technically not a nut, it grows underground and it's a legume. You can use leftover rice and make amazake. What is amazake? Amazake, it looks like this. Basically, it's a sweet amazake, traditional amazake. It's fermented into it's Koji rice mixed with water, fermented into a sweet kind of Japanese dessert. It has relatively short preparation time, only 8 to 10 hours. Amylase and glucoamylase break down complex carbohydrates into glucose. So basically all the starch of rice is broken down into sugar and becomes as sweet as honey or agave. You can use it as a sweetener in cocktails. You can also clarify it. And so yes, it's a source of sweetness in desserts and drinks. My wife is a pastry chef, and we've made a lot of desserts with different ferments. We also use amazake, and we also have we published a guide, fermentation in desserts, and there is an application how you can use amazake in desserts. You can find it on my website, cosmossociety.com. It's free to download. And then enzymes-driven process. You need to activate amylase to produce more sugar, and for that you need to keep it at 55 Celsius. This is probably the only type of fermentation where you need to apply electricity. So you need to keep it for 8 to 10 hours at 55 Celsius. If you use a rice cooker, just a normal rice cooker, keep it at keep warm mode, which will give you like between 55 and 60 Celsius. How much energy it will consume, it will add probably to your bill like 10 dirhams, max, no, less, like 5 dirhams in 8 hours, because it's a very like it's built the way to preserve energy, only to use to get the energy as much as it needs. So it will add to your monthly electricity bill maybe $5. Because a lot of people are worried, oh wow, keep it running for 10 hours. And it's a precursor to ethanol and lactic acid fermentation. Since it's sweet, it means it can be fermented further. So it's a source of sugar. It means you can make sake, or you can ferment it into another lacto-fermented soda. And then there is another way to make amazake. It's a sour amazake. It's fermented at room temperature, and this is already lacto-fermentation. You ferment it at 20 to 22 Celsius. Amylase is not that active as at 55 Celsius, but still it's a little bit active. It converts some starch into sugars. And those sugars become food for lactic acid bacteria, and lactic acid bacteria converts those sugars into lactic acid. Protease convert proteins of rice into amino acids, umami. And then you get umami and sour beverage, perfect for gastronomic pairings. Can you see the, like me, can you see the video? I'm showing now sour amazake that is being fermented. So basically lactic acid bacteria is naturally present on koji rice, on fresh koji rice. All you need, you just combine koji rice and water, and that's it. And you wait. Keep it at this temperature and wait for a couple of days. That's it. You don't need even electricity. You don't need anything else. And then you get to a lot of umami and lactic acid. A lot of chefs, they love this particular ferment. When I do workshops in person, there is like most of the attendees are chefs, and most of them, they like, I can see that they start thinking how they can implement that in the kitchens or in pairings. So fermentation conditions and consistency. Can sour amazake be used for milk punch? Yes, you can clarify it with milk punch method. You will still need milk. There will be natural acidity from sour amazake that will help you curdle that milk. Also, you can just strain off the rice and you will end up with a clear liquid. You don't really need to do anything else to clarify it. If the other ingredients are not clear, then yes, it can be. Also, you can do secondary fermentation with that. And mix it with fruit puree and get something fruity, umami, and sour and fizzy. Fermentation conditions and consistency. So imagine we have 3 people, and each of them has amazing skills in a particular area. We have a person who plays a table soccer. He's an amazing table soccer player. He can win anyone. We have a DJ, an amazing DJ, highly paid DJ that is probably not really needed right now in Dubai. And we have a guitar player. That person can perform the most complicated parties on a guitar. All of them have amazing skills, and we put them into a room. 3 of them are still there. 3 of them have their skills, but we only give them a guitar. So only one person will perform. Only one person can showcase the skill. So this is very important. Only one will perform. 3 of them are there, but only one will perform because we provided the right conditions. We created the right environment only for one of them. The same with the bacteria. We create the right environment only for one type of bacteria we want, and we'll let that bacteria perform. The others are still there, but they cannot do anything. They cannot transform the flavor. They cannot impact anything. They cannot harm us. The same. This was the purpose of fermentation, to make sure that bad bacteria doesn't spoil the food and we don't get sick. This is the fermentation conditions, also available on my Instagram. Basically, this is the temperature range, humidity, oxygen access, pH, and salinity that are okay for the certain type of fermentation. It doesn't mean that this is the perfect conditions. This is the conditions where fermentation, for example, lactic acid fermentation, can happen. Lactic acid fermentation can happen in the range between 20 to 37 degrees Celsius. But we know that higher temperatures, they're also good for yeast, which is alcoholic fermentation. And the higher the temperature is, the better it is for alcoholic fermentation. So we have to account for that as well. Yeah, you can screenshot it, or you can go to my Instagram and screenshot it there. This is just for your information. And then we're coming to an end. This is 5 rules of lacto-fermented sodas. You don't need salt. A lot of people believe that, oh, lacto-fermented means fermented with salt. This is for, I call it grandmother's way of lacto-fermenting. Like when you put salt into a jar with vegetables and you let it sit there and it ferments. Yeah, that's the easiest way. But then if you ferment it that way, how much of that you can use in a dish or a beverage? Very tiny amounts. In a dish, yes, you can use more. You can also dehydrate salted lacto-fermented fruits or vegetables and use it instead of salt. And you can use that in cocktails too. But again, very tiny amounts, and the flavor of the fruit or vegetable might just get lost. Or your drink will be too salty, and not many people like salty drinks, and not all the salty drinks actually work. But how much of lacto-fermented soda without salt you can use? It can be 100% of your drink. It can be 80% of your drink. It's just up to you how much you use it. You don't need salt. Keep temperature at 20 to 22 Celsius. Again, if you keep it higher, it will go into alcoholic fermentation. If you keep it lower, fermentation might not happen. So keep it between 20 and 22 Celsius. This is the sweet spot when you can make sure that you are lacto-fermenting. Starting bricks 8 to 12, about 10% sugar. This for the same reason. Yeast like more sugar. Lactic acid bacteria likes less sugar. Too little sugar, no fermentation. Avoid large quantities of aggressively acidic ingredients. If you want to lacto-ferment bergamot, probably not. The lacto-fermentation will be very slow and very mild. Something will happen, but the impact will not be that significant. It will just, if you ferment the fruit itself, it will just decompose partially, but the lactic acid bacteria will not be produced in those amounts that we really want, because the environment is already acidic. The bacteria, if bacteria understands if it produces more acidity, it will die. The environment will become too acidic even for the lactic acid bacteria. That's why, for example, if you pickle, if you add vinegar into your ferment, pickling and fermenting is different. Fermenting is alive, you use predominantly salt. Pickling is you use a lot of vinegar and you make sure that there is nothing alive. So there is no activity of the bacteria or yeast. So like nothing is happening there. It's a stall process. It's just dead. It's soaked in vinegar. The same as if you preserve that in alcohol. Nothing alive will happen. You are just infusing vegetables with vinegar and spices and herbs, but not fermented. So you need to avoid large quantities of aggressively acidic ingredients. And clean, but not sterile. You should not sterilize your vegetables or fruits when you ferment. They just have to be clean. When you sterilize, you kill everything, including that bacteria that you want. You don't need that. The good bacteria, if you create all the right environment, the good bacteria will take over. The good bacteria will win. It has to be clean, but not sterile. These are the 5 rules. And then this is the Lacto-Fermented Sodas guide. All the recipes that we discussed, they are there, including ginger bug, including water kefir if you can find it, including milk kefir. Everything's there. You can get this QR code and download it there for free. You can go to my website and download it there for free. It's free for everybody. These are some other projects that we've done. We did cereal fermenter webinars some time ago with the authors of the books. Some more coming soon, but this was in the past. For example, with Sander Katz, the godfather of fermentation, Rich Shee, we also did the workshop, me and him in Dubai together. Sharon Flynn, we also did the workshop in Dubai together for a Campari group. Danny Childs, who wrote a book that is closest to the fermentation in cocktails. And these are the books that you can also read on fermentation. Sander Katz